Welcome to News Today.
U.S. organizations saved shipping mask foreign places at the same time as hospitals ran out and regardless of warnings. U.S. corporations persevered their huge promote-off of clinical mask remote places all through March, properly after the coronavirus started infecting Americans and draining hospitals of critical substances, and whilst White House officers raised pink flags, online media's research found.
America exported greater protective mask, which includes disposable surgical mask and N95 respirator masks, this March than in some other month inside the past decade. In all, $83.1 million worth of such products were sent from the United States to the rest of the world, in step with an evaluation of the ultra-modern U.S. Census Bureau alternate statistics for the export class that consists of fabric primarily based defensive masks.
March's total export determined surpassed the preceding high of $74.3 million set in February, whilst some of the masks went to China. And it a long way surpassed the common monthly cargo value of $53.3 million over the last decade, online media's analysis determined. The data suggests only month-to-month totals and does no longer allow for a each-day breakdown of shipments or agencies.
The exports came even as top-level White House officials, consisting of Vice President Mike Pence, had been being warned that such shipments have been hurting the U.S.'s own supply, in line with an 89 web-page whistleblower grievance launched Tuesday from ousted U.S. Health and Human Services Department Director Dr. Rick Bright.
The grievance includes severe attachments that element discussions amongst authorities officials as early as January approximately deliver chain issues of personal protective gadget and the opportunity of halting U.S. exports. On February 14, as an instance, Peter Navarro, the White House's director of the Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy, dispatched a memo to the COVID-19 task force chaired by way of Pence. Has the export of N95 been halted? If no longer, why no longer? We are going through shortages of raw materials that advise a restrained deliver. We ought to not be exporting any greater mask.
Navarro urged instant movement on the issue. Let's pass this in Trump time, he wrote. These masks are the front-line protection for our fitness care specialists, and we can't waste time.
Despite the one's warnings, President Donald Trump did now not flow to ban exports of N95 mask and other personal defensive system until April 3, 7 weeks later. He in part reversed that policy days later after backlash from different nations, mainly Canada. Neither the White House nor the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services answered to online media's requests for remark.
COVID-19 first appeared within the United States January 21 and had inflamed as a minimum 42 Americans by the beginning of March. By the end of that month, the case count hit nearly 186,000 and prompted journey bans, stay-at domestic orders, and large shortages of personal shielding equipment. Hospitals across the county have been suffering to purchase surgical and N95 masks, encountering ordering delays of up to 6 months, in step with a survey launched Monday through the watchdog of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. HHS Secretary Alex Azar serves on the COVID-19 task force to which Navarro's memos had been dispatched. Other members include Director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Dr. Anthony Fauci, U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams, and U.S. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin.
U.S. Representative Lloyd Doggett, D. Texas, raised questions with Azar and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross in early March after a Commerce Department flyer circulated that endorsed corporations to take advantage of brief Chinese import incentives and pushed U.S. groups to promote greater in their clinical supplies crucial to a coronavirus response abroad. Businesses were advocated to export protecting masks, mechanical ventilators and even mask-making machines to China. In January, this management changed into being advised via its very own contributors about the significance of doing something, Doggett informed online medias. He said that rather than addressing the difficulty, the federal authorities continued to facilitate exporting protective device.
I'm very tons an internationalist and I consider in cooperating with different countries, Doggett said. But at a time of such dire want in March, to be transport what we need for our fitness care specialists and first responders overseas is an actual betrayal of the national hobby. Discussions began in January. While February became a document month for exports to China, wherein the novel coronavirus started, the records display that exports to Italy and Spain shot up in March as those nations were reeling from the virus. At least half of the resources, although, went to Mexico and Canada, the facts show. Discussions of supply chain problems of personal protecting system commenced as early as January 29, when an HHS Deputy Assistant Secretary emailed 8 other excessive degree humans at HHS, along with the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, with info on what the branch was doing to address it, in keeping with the whistleblower complaint.
The electronic mail stated the branch was setting up a coverage group that could have a look at authorities' purchases, adjustments to more restrictive PPE steering, release of the stockpile, or blockading exports. The email additionally alerted the recipients that Taiwan, domestic to a major manufacturer of N95 mask for U.S. brands, had applied an export ban 5 days earlier, on January 24. And on February 9, Navarro dispatched a page memo to the COVID-19 Challenge Force urging, among other things, a direct halt to the export of N95 masks.
The U.S. has 4 small businesses that produce masks, however relies upon on the relaxation of the arena for approximately 90% of its elements, he wrote. Currently, U.S. corporations are ramping up, however they're exporting a lot of their manufacturing. The U.S. consequently faces the real prospect of a severe mask shortage. And Bright wrote in an email on March 12, efforts to halt the export need to be taken into consideration now. The easiest manner may be for the SNS to area a few orders with us primarily based manufacturers to 1, buy the modern stock and a pair of, ramp up manufacturing of extra. Bright, a vaccine professional, alleges that he become removed from his put-up as director of the HHS Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority in April after raising issues approximately a drug Trump touted as capacity treatment for coronavirus. He dispatched his complaint to the U.S. Office of Special Counsel.
Currently, the federal authorities is spending $400 million to decontaminate and reuse N95 masks, an idea that became unheard of before the present-day scarcity. We need to hear from you. Online medias is monitoring coronavirus outbreaks at meatpacking vegetation across the United States of America. Tell us your story. Email kbagenstos@gatehousemedia.com. Private citizens are stitching masks themselves to donate to nearby hospitals as a makeshift answer so employees don't ought to tie bandanas round their faces. The mayors of 192 cities across the United States of America stated in a survey released in overdue March that they did no longer have sufficient face masks for his or her first responders and medical personnel, and 186 cities stated they confronted a scarcity of other private protecting equipment. The survey said the cities want 28.5 million face masks, 24.4 million different varieties of private defensive system and 139,000 ventilators. The respondents did no longer encompass mayors of a number of the state's largest towns, like New York and Chicago. Bright's whistleblower grievance proves that human beings inside the Trump management knew months ago that a shortage turned into impending, Doggett said.
When you realize the typhoon is brewing, he stated, you don't export your life preservers. Online medias used the brand new alternate statistics posted via the U.S. Census Bureau for the analysis and looked at each commodity's change value based on its harmonized system code, known as HS code, primarily based on a reference document for COVID-19 scientific resources published via the World Customs Organization.